When we journey through the vast panorama of spiritual thought that spans countless centuries and cultures, we often find ourselves guided by prominent sages, mainstream doctrines, and familiar traditions. Yet there exist authors, researchers, and visionaries who remain quietly tucked away in the margins of history. Some of these lesser-known figures held keys to understanding the human condition that transcend literal interpretations of ancient texts and move beyond the accepted norms of religious practice. In the early 20th century, one such figure emerged, the American homeopath and occultist George W. Carey. In his time, Carey devoted himself to unveiling subtle links between human physiology, internal chemistry, and the hidden messages encoded in time-honored scriptures. His 1918 work, The Antichrist, now over a century old, proposed that what many interpret as mere historical records or rigid doctrine may in fact be symbolic representations of internal processes, transformative pathways designed to deepen human consciousness. To many, this idea might seem surprising or even unsettling. For generations, spiritual teachings have been filtered through layers of literalism, moral codes, or narratives perceived as detached from everyday life. But if we consider the possibility that what we call the divine is not an external entity locked in distant heavens, but rather a vibrant potential existing within us, within our organs, glands, and neural pathways, our understanding of sacred knowledge can expand in remarkable ways. Ancient references to oils, seeds, rivers, and celestial phenomena may be less about geography or historical chronology than they are about our inner landscapes and personal evolution. By re-examining these age-old metaphors under the lens of physiology, biochemistry, and neuroscience, a more integrated form of spirituality emerges, one that honors both mystical insight and scientific inquiry. Instead of relying solely on external authorities or inherited belief systems, we begin to see that enlightenment, balance, and profound wisdom might lie dormant in the very structure of our bodies. Far from offering a single, absolute truth, this perspective invites each of us to reflect, question, and engage in a more intimate dialogue with our own nature, revealing a path where spiritual understanding and personal growth become dynamic, evolving processes woven into the fabric of daily life. Consider this radical proposition. The human body, with its intricate networks of nerves, glands, and subtle energies, may be a living text, a sacred manuscript mirroring the universe. Many spiritual traditions have long spoken in riddles and symbols, weaving allegories of divine beings, holy rivers, and storied landscapes. Yet beneath these poetic veils, we might discover hints pointing inward toward a journey that unfolds not across continents, but within the inner geography of our physiology. George W. Carey and other pioneers suggested that key biblical passages are not simply historical accounts or moral parables, but carefully coded maps describing processes occurring inside us. For example, the symbolic Christ might represent not only a revered teacher of antiquity, but also a subtle essence within the human nervous system, a refined oil or secreted substance that travels along the spine, influencing our level of awareness. Where literal interpretations of scripture see rivers and valleys, this perspective sees the spinal column, nerve plexuses, and neural pathways functioning as metaphoric landscapes of transformation. In these teachings, the well-known Jordan River may be understood as the spinal canal, a flowing current of life force that moves through us. The Dead Sea becomes the sacral region, a reservoir where energies accumulate. When we maintain harmony in our lives, adopting balanced diets, embracing mindful practices, and cultivating emotional stability, the energy that once descended into the body's lower regions can reverse course, ascending back toward the brain. This upward journey is often described in symbolic terms. The place called Golgotha, translated as the place of the skull, may refer to a region within our own heads where a profound shift occurs. Rather than an external crucifixion, this internal process represents a refinement, an elevation of our baseline perception into more subtle, luminous states of awareness. Just as heat refines raw materials into precious substances, our body's life force can be purified as it travels upward, invigorating higher neural centers and, ultimately, offering the gift of heightened clarity, compassion, and insight. The notion of Bethlehem, traditionally regarded as the birthplace of Christ, becomes equally suggestive. Within this interpretive framework, Bethlehem may symbolize the solar plexus, a site generating an energetic seed during each lunar cycle. Instead of confining these events to ancient times and distant lands, we now encounter them as continuous phenomena in our bodies. Each month, an opportunity to nurture and raise this seed presents itself. The church, once conceived as an external building, transforms into the entirety of our organism, a living temple with sacred altars at every nerve center and gland. In this more intimate spiritual cartography, the divine is no longer an abstraction perched in distant realms. It is a living, breathing potential accessible through the daily care of our physical and energetic beings. Such a perspective does not diminish faith or contradict scientific understanding. On the contrary, it encourages an integrative approach, one that honors millennia of poetic wisdom while inviting us to delve into personal experience. By blending physiology and symbolism, we discover a profound unity where body and spirit meet in a single tapestry of understanding, welcoming us to explore both the known edges of science and the endless horizons of inner grace. Long before imperial decrees and ecclesiastical councils reshaped human conceptions of time, ancient peoples tuned their lives to cosmic rhythms. They watched the stars and traced the graceful dance of the sun and moon, syncing their harvests, rituals, and social structures with the universe's own heartbeat. In these earlier ages, sacred time and cosmic cycles were inseparable from the human body's internal rhythms. The alignment of constellations, solstices, and equinoxes spoke to an innate human intuition that we are participants in a grand celestial symphony. However, historical events disrupted this delicate harmony. The Council of Nicaea in the 4th century and subsequent adjustments by the Roman Empire recalibrated the calendar, shifting the start of the year and redefining sacred festivities. Over time, political interests overshadowed the natural alignment of Aries with the head and the authentic beginning of the zodiacal cycle. By obscuring the original correlation between celestial movements and human physiology, these changes gradually severed us from an integrated understanding of ourselves as microcosms of the universe. No longer guided by starlight and seasonal patterns, people increasingly depended on institutional authorities for spiritual direction. Calendars and festivals were strategically rearranged, often to serve political needs rather than cosmic truth. This realignment did more than just alter dates. It concealed ancient wisdom that recognized each organ, gland, and subtle center in the body as resonating with particular cosmic frequencies. Just as certain constellations were once thought to influence specific bodily systems, the link between the heavens and our physiology began to fade from collective memory. Modern science, to its credit, has begun to rediscover hints of these old ideas. Research into circadian rhythms, hormonal cycles, and psychological patterns attest to subtle influences that natural cycles still exert on our well-being. Yet for many, the foundational narrative, the understanding that bodies and skies exist in sympathetic resonance, lies buried beneath centuries of doctrine and enforced interpretations. The result is a culture often disconnected from the cosmos, unaware that our ancestors lived within a vibrant, interwoven tapestry of time and space. Reclaiming this perspective is not about rejecting modern innovations or returning to a romanticized past. Rather, it invites us to appreciate that we are not isolated spectators in an indifferent universe. By recalling that ancient interplay between stars, bodies, and minds, we reawaken our capacity for wonder. We can sense that spiritual understanding need not be limited to static texts or hierarchical institutions. Instead, it might arise naturally when we pay attention, truly pay attention, to the dance of celestial bodies and the quiet whispers of our physiology. In embracing this holistic vision, we free ourselves to explore a richer form of spirituality, one that effortlessly marries the cosmic and the personal, the infinite and the intimate. Within several esoteric teachings lies a recurring motif, the existence of a subtle seed of potential that is continually born within us, guided by lunar and solar cycles. Every 29.5 days, as the moon returns to the position it occupied at our birth, a special energetic pulse arises. This seed, not material in the conventional sense, emerges near the solar plexus, an internal sun that can transmute the invisible currents of the cosmos into vital force. Symbolically, this seed has been referred to as bread and fish, spiritual nourishment transcending mere metaphor. Nurturing this seed requires mindful living. Just as a gardener must tend plants with the right balance of water, sunlight, and care, we must foster our inner environment to allow this subtle energy to flourish. Overindulgence, consuming too much food, surrendering to toxic habits, misusing sexual energy, scatters and drains the delicate essence we seek to cultivate. By contrast, adopting wholesome dietary habits, practicing moderation, and engaging in activities that calm the mind and body create a hospitable climate for this internal seed. Gentle reminders throughout our days, mindful breathing, short meditations, or moments of silent reflection can help us integrate these principles, turning abstract understanding into lived experience. As the seed matures, it undertakes a profound journey along the spinal column. Each segment of the spine, each nerve plexus, and each endocrine gland adds its own subtle influence. Passing through these centers, the seed encounters the ancient physiological structures that, in symbolic language, correspond to temples, rivers, and portals of transformation. By the time it reaches the pineal gland, a tiny pinecone-shaped structure deep within the brain that modern science associates with regulating sleep and wakefulness, it has shed its denser aspects, becoming refined, radiant, and illuminating. In this refined state, perception broadens, emotional turbulence settles, and a gentle clarity permeates the mind. This is not an otherworldly experience reserved for mystics alone. It is a natural capacity accessible to anyone willing to align their lives with these principles. As each lunar cycle offers a new chance to receive this seed, we engage not in blind belief, but in an ongoing experiment. We observe how conscious behavior, disciplined habits, and dedicated practice can lead us deeper into our own inner temple. Today's world often feels fragmented and chaotic. By restoring our connection with these subtle cycles, we regain agency over our spiritual growth. We come to understand that transcendence does not hinge on dramatic miracles or external authorities, but on our willingness to cooperate with the processes woven into our very anatomy. This approach invites us to rediscover a spirituality that is both ancient and immediate, poetic, and practical, quietly reminding us that enlightenment need not be an unreachable star in a distant sky. It can be the silent flower blooming in the depths of our being. Stepping back to consider the entire picture, we find that the journey we have undertaken reveals a fresh interpretation of spirituality. Instead of perceiving religious narratives as fixed dogmas or time-locked histories, we now see them as intricate metaphors, illuminating the subtle interplay between body, mind, and cosmos. The Christ, once confined to a historical time frame and external mythology, emerges as a living potential within us. Golgotha, that distant hill, becomes a region of inner refinement. Bethlehem, once a place on a map, transforms into a fertile energy center within our own anatomy. In this reimagined cosmology, the human organism is both altar and pilgrim, both cathedral and congregation. Recovering this understanding requires a certain courage, the courage to question long-held assumptions and re-examine sacred texts from a standpoint that honors both poetic mysticism and scientific curiosity. Words that have accumulated centuries of dogmatic baggage can be stripped down to their etymological roots, revealing original meanings that speak directly to human physiology and psychological development. Recognizing our bodies as microcosmic reflections of the universe enriches our perspective. We are no longer passive observers of spiritual mysteries, but active participants in a grand cosmic unfolding. This renewed perspective also softens the boundaries between religious traditions and scientific inquiry. On one hand, we embrace the rigor of modern research into neurochemistry, endocrinology, and psychosomatic health. On the other, we welcome the symbolic languages of myth, art, and ritual, which have long served as vessels for ancient truths. In doing so, we create a dialogue that respects tradition while encouraging evolution, innovation, and personal experimentation. By transcending literalism, we grant ourselves permission to explore the sacred as an experiential reality rather than an external construct. Instead of relying on intermediaries to interpret spiritual truths, we learn to trust the quiet voice of our own bodies. The organs, glands, and neural pathways become scrolls waiting to be read, each holding secrets that once understood can lead to states of harmony, empathy, and expanded awareness. Collectively, this shift in perspective can have profound implications. Imagine communities where spiritual growth is not a matter of blind obedience, but a shared exploration of inner landscapes. As more individuals learn to cultivate their internal seeds of awareness, we might witness a cultural renaissance. In this era, the values of kindness, sustainability, and interconnectedness arise naturally from an embodied understanding of our place in the cosmos. Rather than seeing ourselves as separate from nature, we might come to know ourselves as living cells within the body of the universe, entrusted with the care and nourishment of the whole. In this vision, every aspect of daily life becomes an opportunity for spiritual practice. A meal becomes a sacrament when approached with gratitude. A conversation can be a form of prayer when infused with compassion and honesty. Quiet moments of reflection under the night sky become meditations on our shared origins among the stars. Through these subtle shifts, we recover a sense of belonging that transcends cultural divisions and religious differences. Ultimately, recognizing our inner divinity does not inflate the ego. It places us in humble awe of the cosmic heritage that resides within every human being. We have traveled far through a landscape of ideas that invites us to reinterpret not just centuries-old scriptures, but our very nature. The knowledge that George W. Carey pointed toward, long buried under layers of literal interpretations, political maneuvering, and linguistic confusion, remains alive and accessible. Within our bodies, we find codes and correspondences that reflect the macrocosm, reminding us that spirituality is not a distant mirage, but an intimate quality of our own biological and energetic design. As we reintegrate these insights, we discover that true wisdom does not hinge on the acceptance of rigid doctrines or the veneration of external authorities. Instead, it flourishes when we engage directly with our own experience. This is where practice becomes indispensable. Throughout these chapters, we have seen that maintaining a balanced lifestyle, paying attention to lunar and solar cycles, and consciously refining our inner energies can lead to tangible transformations in perception and well-being. Preparation for this practical engagement was woven discreetly into the text, nudging us to approach our physiology as a dynamic temple ready for illumination. In embracing this view, we do not reject tradition or scientific advancement. On the contrary, we position ourselves at a vantage point where these domains can meet and enrich each other. The ancient symbolism of oils, seeds, rivers, and temples gains renewed significance when interpreted through the lens of endocrinology, neurology, and human psychology. Conversely, scientific insights deepen when we allow for the possibility that ancient wisdom, often expressed poetically, anticipated truths modern instruments are only now confirming. In this quietly revolutionary shift, we move from passive recipients of inherited beliefs to co-creators of our spiritual reality. As we recognize that the sacred emerges from within, we honor not only our ancient past, but also our infinite potential. Each subtle energy flowing through our veins, each nerve conducting impulses of light, each lunar cycle gifting us another seed. These elements testify that the cosmos and the human being are inseparably one. Where once we looked outside for salvation or meaning, we now find them blossoming inside us, making the journey of life a profound spiritual adventure written, quite literally, into our very flesh and bones. To continue this journey of internal exploration, meditation can serve as a gentle yet powerful tool, an instrument for tuning our awareness to the subtle harmonies of our body's inner cosmos. By sitting in stillness, focusing on breath, or listening to guided audio sessions designed to harmonize our mental frequencies, we enable the seeds of understanding to sprout more fully. If you feel called to deepen this connection, consider accessing the curated meditative materials provided via the link on your screen or in the comments. If these perspectives resonate with you, share your experience by writing, "This made sense to me,"